They know that they have an opportunity.
Will likely retire after this season.
I think they're all in.
The NFL is a young man's league.
Two things usually happen when Father Time Wilds is approaching. One is the increased injury rate. We're seeing that. The other is you're not as good.
Everyone says it every year, and every year a handful of guys well past 35 refuse to accept it. Father Time catches up to us all, and
in the biggest moments. What it means is that he's not going to be able to be great and consistent all the time, but he's going to be great more when he feels like being great.
Players who've already made hundreds of millions of dollars, already won everything there is to win, keep showing up to hit or get hit by 25-year-olds for a fraction of what they used to make. So the question isn't why are they still playing? This isn't a story about players who don't know when to quit. It's about those who physically can't. Aaron Rodgers is the obvious place to start because he's by far the most decorated on this list and maybe the most complicated. The Packers drafted him in 2005 out of California, and he sat behind Brett Favre for 3 full seasons. Most people forget how awkward that was. Favre kept retiring and unretiring, and Rodgers just sat there waiting for his shot.
It was definitely an ego hit for sure, because you think you're coming in, I'm the fucking man, I'm gonna play right away, and blah, blah, blah. And
when he finally took over in 2008, he turned into one of the best pure passers in NFL history. He's a 4-time MVP, a Super Bowl champion, and a first ballot Hall of Fame lock when he actually decides to stop. His peak had 2 bookends. 2011 was the first masterclass. He threw 45 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions and posted a passer rating of 122.5. That season was nearly perfect. He completed 68% of his throws, and the Packers went 15-1. Unfortunately, they lost to the Giants in the divisional round. Then a decade later, 2021 comes around, and he threw 37 more touchdowns with only 4 picks, proving he could still dominate at age 37 even as the league got younger and faster around him.
They're still the 1 seed. They clinched the 1 seed. His play was phenomenal.
Those seasons showed total control of the offense and throws that shouldn't be possible, but the decline was already starting. The relationship with Green Bay got ugly. They drafted Jordan Love in the first round in 2020, and Aaron never fully got past that. He played the diva card, held out, threatened retirement, and eventually forced his way to the Jets in 2023.
Breaking news in the NFL, the long-awaited trade of Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets is now completed.
That disaster lasted 4 plays before his Achilles blew out. He came back in 2024 but wasn't the same. Then came the Pittsburgh move in 2025, only to get blown out by the Texans in the wildcard game in embarrassing fashion. This offseason, he's reuniting with Mike McCarthy, the original coach who helped develop him back in Green Bay. At 42 years old, Rodgers just signed another 1-year deal with the Steelers worth up to $25 million. Last June, he told Pat McAfee that the 2025 season would likely be his last, and he wanted to finish with love and fun and peace. Then the season ended with that brutal wildcard loss. After the game, he refused to commit either way. He told reporters that he wouldn't make emotional decisions. He pointed out that his body still felt good, and he didn't want his future to be decided by physical ability. So that's where we stand. Aaron isn't playing for money at this point because he's already made over $300 million in his career. He's not playing for a ring because he already has one, and the Steelers roster isn't getting him one. He keeps playing because being the guy who makes impossible throws and controls the offense is who he's been for 20 years. When you take the helmet away, he's just a 42-year-old man with a lot of free time, a potentially fake wife, and not much else to do, which can be a lot harder on people than it sounds. But he did just reconcile with his family over the weekend, so that was actually pretty cool to see. Rodgers is hanging on because he can't imagine a life without football. However, our next guy is the complete opposite. He could retire right now and be one of the most famous retired athletes that we've ever seen in America. Travis Kelce is still playing for the Chiefs at 36 years old, and though he's not what he once was, he's still producing at a level that justifies the jersey. Kansas City made him the 3rd round pick back in 2013 out of Cincinnati. He was overshadowed earlier by flashier names, but he developed into the most dangerous tight end in football. Great route runner and a mismatch nightmare in the red zone. 3-time Super Bowl champion, the Chiefs' all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Kelce racked up 1,080 catches for 13,002 yards and 82 touchdowns in his career so far, which puts him 3rd all-time among tight ends in catches and yards. Only Tony Gonzalez and Jason Witten have more, and he's coming for both of them. In 2025, Kelce led the Chiefs in catches with 76, receiving yards with 851, and he tied for the team lead in receiving touchdowns with 5. He joined Tony Gonzalez as the only other tight end to have over 800 receiving yards at age 36 or over. Then he turned around and signed another extension with the Kansas City Chiefs this offseason. Travis is still kinda hanging on by a thread. Kansas City traded Tyreek Hill 3 years ago and never replaced him, and Kelce still accounts for nearly 23% of the team's receiving yards since that trade. Patrick Mahomes trusts him more than anybody else on the roster, and that trust shows up on third down and in the red zone when the game is on the line. In 2025, the Chiefs had one of the worst receiving corps in years, and Kelce was still the only guy who could consistently get open when he battered, which isn't saying much, to be honest. The ring chase is absolutely real. He's got 3 rings and wants more. The celebrity profile doesn't hurt either. Now marrying Taylor Swift has made him bigger than the sport in some ways. But the tape shows he's still Mahomes' most trusted target, and until that changes, there's no reason for him to walk away. When your quarterback looks for you on the biggest stages, you don't retire. You keep running routes until he stops calling your number. But not everybody is still pulling their weight. Odell Beckham Jr. is writing one of the saddest stories in modern NFL history. He's trying to write a finale to a story that should have ended, honestly, in 2021. The Giants made him a first-round pick in 2014 out of LSU. He exploded onto the scene instantly. That one-handed grab against Dallas in Week 5 made him a household name overnight and turned him into one of the most popular athletes in the world. From 2014 through 2016, he put up 3 straight seasons over 1,300 yards. His best year was 2015, when he caught 96 passes for 1,450 yards and 13 touchdowns. He looked like a Hall of Famer in the making. Then the injuries started piling up. The ankle, and the knee, and the ACL. Every time he came back, a little more of that explosive burst was gone. The Giants traded him to Cleveland in 2019. And that was supposed to be a fresh start, but it wasn't. He won a ring with the Rams in 2021, but he tore his ACL in that Super Bowl and never got his burst back. He then had a forgettable stint with the Ravens and even more forgettable one with the Dolphins in 2024. Now he's a 32-year-old and back with the Giants on a 1-year veteran minimum salary benefit deal worth $1.3 million. There's no guaranteed money in that contract. This isn't a star contract at all. It's a can't body deal with a familiar name. Odell isn't playing for the money because there isn't any. He's playing because he still sees the guy who made that one-handed catch against the Cowboys. He believes he can still be a difference maker. The problem is that the rest of the league sees a 32-year-old wide receiver with bad knees who hasn't been elite in nearly a decade. OBJ is holding on because he remembers the player he was, but the next guy never even became the player everybody expected him to be, yet he keeps cashing checks. OBJ at least had a peak that everybody remembers. Some guys on this list never even got that. Jadeveon Clowney was the first overall pick in 2014, and everybody remembers the hit against Michigan in the 2013 Outback Bowl. That play alone made him the most hyped defensive prospect that year. People were talking about him like he was the next Lawrence Taylor before he ever played an NFL down. Clowney went to 3 Pro Bowls, and his best season came in 2017 with Houston, when he posted 9.5 sacks and looked like the dominant edge rusher everybody projected. But he never became the guy who could take over a game, never had a double-digit sack season, and never made an all-pro team. The Texans traded him to the Seahawks in 2019 for a bag of spare parts, and that should have told us everything that we needed to know right there. At 33 years old, Clowney has played for 7 teams in 11 seasons: Houston, Seattle, Tennessee, Cleveland, Baltimore, Carolina, and Dallas. Teams keep signing him because the name still carries weight, and he can give you some solid snaps as a rotational pass rusher who's good in run defense, but he's never lived up to the first overall pick hype, and at this point, he probably never will. Jadeveon is still playing because the money is decent for a part-time defensive end, and because there's a part of him that I'm sure still believes he can be the player everybody saw in college. The problem is that version might have never existed in the NFL. Sometimes a single play can define a career that never matched, and that's his case. Clowney is getting paid like a guy on a depth chart, but this next guy got paid like a franchise quarterback, even though we all know the team is planning for life without him. Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick in 2012 out of Michigan State. He sat early behind Robert Griffin III, developed into a solid starter in Washington, and then really cashed in with Minnesota on a series of fully guaranteed deals that changed how quarterbacks negotiated. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler with multiple 4,000-yard seasons and a 107.4 passer rating in 2019. He's been a top 16 quarterback for most of his career, and he's made well over $200 million doing it. His fully guaranteed deals in Minnesota changed the quarterback market. Teams hated it, but Cousins and his agent kept winning. The Vikings paid him $84 million over 3 years and another $66 million extension. He never left money on the table. Afterwards, he stole from the Falcons for 2 seasons. Now at 37 years old, Cousins signed with the Raiders on a deal that was reported as 5 years and $172 million. That sounds like a massive commitment from a team that believes in him, but the real structure tells a completely different story. It's actually a 1-year, fully guaranteed $20 million deal with team options after that. The Raiders can cut him after 2026 and owe almost nothing beyond the initial $20 million. Atlanta benched him last season for Michael Penix Jr., and that had to sting. A guy who started 137 games suddenly wasn't the guy anymore. Cousins is with the Raiders because he still wants to prove he has it. But with drafting Fernando Mendoza in that 1-year deal, we all know he's on borrowed time. The question is whether Kirk knows it too. Kirk Cousins is fighting to keep a job that the league is trying to take away from him, but this next guy already lost the war for championships, but he keeps coming back to a rebuilding team because quitting would feel like surrender. Cameron Jordan was a first-round pick in 2011 out of California. He's been steady, durable, and productive from day one. A 6-time Pro Bowler, over 100 career sacks. He's anchored the Saints defense for more than a decade and has been one of the most consistent defensive ends in the NFC. At 35 years old, Jordan is still playing for a Saints team that's in a full rebuild. They're definitely not competing for a Super Bowl this year. They're trying to figure out if their young quarterback is the answer and whether their head coach can survive another losing season. Cam is putting up okay-ish numbers on a team that's going nowhere. New Orleans drafted him, developed him, and paid him. When you've been the face of a defense for 14 years, walking away feels like abandoning your post. The money is still good, but at this point, Jordan is playing because being a Saint is his entire identity here. It's loyalty and identity wrapped into one, and that's a hard thing to walk away from when the uniform has been a part of your life since you were 22 years old. Some players just don't want to leave that behind, which I completely understand. Jordan stayed with one team because it's a part of his identity. This other guy is actually just too good to leave. Cameron Heyward was a first-round pick in 2011, Pittsburgh through and through. His father, Craig Heyward, played in the NFL too, and Cameron grew up knowing exactly what the league takes and gives. Heyward is a 7-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time first-team All-Pro, and he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award in 2023. He's racked up 88.5 career sacks, and he's one of the best defensive tackles of his generation. His peak years came in the mid-2010s when he anchored one of the most physical defenses in football. He posted double-digit sacks in 2017 and 2018, all while becoming the kind of player who demanded double teams on every single snap. You couldn't run inside on the Steelers because Heyward would blow up the play before it started. In 2024, he posted 8 sacks and 35 solo tackles at age 35. The Steelers still need him. They drafted Derek Harmon in 2025, but Heyward is still the anchor of that defensive line and the heart of the locker room. He's Pittsburgh born and bred, and being a Steeler is a lifetime commitment in that city. His legacy is secure. He's already a Steelers legend, but he's playing because he's still good enough to matter. He's not hanging on for a paycheck or a nostalgia tour. He's out there because he can still help a team win, and in Pittsburgh, that means everything. Some guys stay too long because they have to. Cam stays because he gets to. Heyward is still a difference maker. The next guy hasn't really been that impactful for a few seasons now, but he's padding the stats for a Hall of Fame case. Calais Campbell was a 2nd-round pick in 2008 out of Miami, long, disruptive, and versatile enough to play inside or out. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, a 1-time first-team All-Pro. He's one of the most respected defensive linemen in the league, and he's been good for so long that his cumulative numbers are the argument for Canton. He spent 9 years in Arizona, where he became one of the most dominant 3-4 defensive ends in the league. Then he went to Jacksonville and kept producing. Then Baltimore, where he had a nice little stretch. Every team he joined got better in the run game immediately because he eats double teams and still pushes the pocket. Campbell has made over $100 million in his career and he's 38 years old now. He's a depth piece at this point. He can give you productive snaps in spurts, but he's no longer a difference maker who changes the game plan. The ring chase is still on, but I'm not sure if the Ravens are true contenders this season. Now it's about the love of the game and adding to the resume. Every season he pads his Hall of Fame case a little bit more. Defensive linemen know their earning window closes fast, and Campbell has stretched it as far as it can go. He's playing because he still loves the locker room and because the checks keep clearing. And honestly, both of those are good enough reasons. Not every old player is chasing a fairy tale, some just like showing up like that. Campbell is chasing numbers to get into Canton, and honestly, this past offseason has been pretty rough for him. The last guy we're going over is a Hall of Fame lock. Yet he keeps showing up because he's still arguably the best at what he does. Still at 38 years old, nobody has figured out how to stop this guy. Trent Williams was a 4th overall pick in 2010 by Washington out of Oklahoma. He was an immediate star at left tackle, and he's been the standard at the position for most of the last decade. He's an 11-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and he's been widely considered the best left tackle in football for years. He's a first-ballot Hall of Fame lock. He spent most of his career in Washington, where he was the one bright spot on a franchise that couldn't get out of its own way. Then came the holdout, the cancer diagnosis, and the ugly divorce from Washington that cost him a full season. San Francisco traded for him in 2020, and he became one of the best players on their offense. Kyle Shanahan built his entire running game around Williams' ability to move bodies at the point of attack. At 37 years old, Trent is still anchoring the 49ers offensive line. When healthy, he's still elite. The 49ers need him, and he's making top-tier tackle money because of it. But there's also a physical reality here that explains why he's different from everybody else on this list. Offensive linemen can play longer than pretty much any other skill position because there's less wear and tear on their body when you're not getting hit every play. You're doing the hitting. You're the hammer, not the nail. Williams isn't refusing to retire because he can't let go. He's refusing because he's still one of the best in the league. That makes him the exception on this list. Most of these guys are chasing who they used to be, but Trent hasn't changed at all. After looking at all 10, we can see there's no single answer. It's a mix, and it's different for every player. The NFL is a machine that needs bodies, and veterans are cheaper than you think when teams structure contracts the right way. Teams keep signing these guys because the alternative is trusting a rookie who might not be ready. So the players get to stay, and the teams get a known commodity who won't panic in the bright lights. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.